Great, I have to do another one of those videos because something recently came up that annoyed the heck out of me and I have to address it. Okay, so the super awesome and amazing silver eyes. They suck. They have been such an inconsistency on how they work in the show by how they decided to establish certain rules previously and then decided to contradict itself later on. So what do the silver eyes that RWBY has do exactly, and what is my issue? Well, when they were first introduced, they were used to freeze this giant unversed that destroyed the school and also were able to take down Cinder. Later on, Crow explained that they were able to strike unversed down. So the assumption we have to make was that this was because RWBY can't control her eyes properly. The show has pointed out countless times that the silver eyes only affect unversed. But hold on, what about Cinder? How did she get affected by the silver eyes? Well, in volume 3 she used a special glove that had a beetle unversed inside that snatched Amber's maiden powers and in return gave it to Cinder. So the assumption people have made is because she used a beetle unversed, it merged with her and the maiden powers. Okay, this seems weird, but we'll take it for now. But then in volume 4 Salem said that the reason she was affected by the silver eyes is because of the maiden's power.
It is because of the maiden's power. Make no mistake, Cinder. You hold the key to our victory. But your newfound strength brings with it a crippling weakness.
So what the heck? Was the beetle unversed really what caused her to lose an arm and an eye? If that isn't the case and it was the maiden's power all along, then why didn't it affect Raven and Penny later on in the show? So it must be the beetle unversed, right? Well, here are a couple of things. The beetle unversed was never brought up ever during this conversation. At all. Heck, it was never brought up ever throughout the rest of the show. So the likely assumption I made is simply that it must have been because of the maiden powers. Because what else could it have been if not the beetle unversed? And here are the defenses I have seen. So let's go over the beetle thing. You could have had a case in this argument if Salem didn't literally say that it's because of the maiden powers later on. But the defense people want to use is that Salem was lying to Cinder. But here is something I don't understand. Why? Why would she be lying to Cinder about something so important and then decide to give her an unversed arm, which would literally cripple her anyways if she fights a silver-eyed warrior? Apparently, according to what I've been told from RWBY fans, is that it's a way of controlling Cinder, like a leash, similar to her childhood. Okay, but you're literally forgetting the fact that intentionally giving her an unversed arm just actively nerfs her if she would be fighting a silver-eyed warrior. Heck, not just that, but it would literally cripple her during normal battles because she can't generate aura there. You know, I was thinking, if her having an unversed arm can generate aura to that area, then wouldn't unversed having inside her just weaken the aura anyways? Seriously, how could the unversed have any benefit in Cinder's eyes? So she can easily lose her unversed arm during normal fights, and that would just end up with her having only one arm again. Hey, so quick edit, that is actually not true because Cinder can just regrow her arm again, which is an entirely different issue that Salem is capable of creating Grimm that can just regenerate easily. But just so we're clear, her arm getting cut off is still something very painful to her, and it takes a few seconds to regrow. It can easily be cut off. I don't even get it. Why can't she just easily cut it off, but RWBY's silver eyes don't just blow it up? So if anything, Cinder should have died here. So while the idea of controlling her sounds good on paper, in execution it's just a poor decision to make it in the first place. If the whole idea is that the beetle gave her the unversed, then why would adding more unversed do her any favors? Wouldn't that just worsen the effect even more? Heck, she already lost an eye and an arm because of it, and her arm wasn't even full unversed. So wouldn't it just blow off her arm again? Heck, it going to her eye could have even damaged her brain. But I don't even understand. What's the point of deliberately lying to Cinder about the silver eyes affecting the maiden's power and also claiming that her having it gives her a crippling weakness? Salem was so upfront about it. How is that any different to giving her a weakness anyways? So you decide to introduce a weakness just to give her a different weakness anyways? Making the whole silver eyes affecting maidens thing completely pointless? fans don't seem to understand that even if the silver eyes don't actually affect the maidens, it still doesn't make the writing of the show any better, because Salem is actively giving Cinder a major weakness. But even with the beetle unversed that we talked about earlier, if this is the cause of the beetle unversed, then why would Salem even give her this ability to get the maiden powers in the first place? Why doesn't Cinder just kill Amber and get the maiden powers like this? They have established that the likely person they would think about when they die is their killer, but even if she was thinking about a different person, they should have had contingencies of that by narrowing down the people that Amber knew and then attack her. By allowing Cinder to get the powers like this, that she also gets unversed in her, is a stupid thing to do, because Salem should obviously account of the idea of there being silver-eyed warriors out there, especially when one of them is a student at Aspin's Huntsman Academy and he would obviously have great interest in her abilities. Why would she not make Cinder aware of those silver-eyed warriors, especially when they've explained later on that they fought them before? The way Cinder looked at the end of volume 3 made it seem like as if she was stunned by it. Obviously this is just another case of the show being inconsistent, but if they actually stuck to that rule of the maiden's power being the reason she got affected by the silver eyes, then that would make Salem look less like an idiot who actively gives Cinder something that would cripple her by silver-eyed warriors. The show decided to completely ignore the fact that Salem stated it affects the maidens. If the silver eyes didn't affect maidens, then Cinder should have questioned that and realized Salem lied to her. Yet nothing like this ever happens in the show, and they just brush it off as if it never happened. You can't just bring up such a major thing that seems like it's gonna be relevant to the show and then just completely ignore it and never address it ever again. So the fact it was never brought up ever as a lie by the narrative of the show, I just made the assumption based on what the show has given me, that the silver eyes also affect the maiden powers, and that's what happened to Cinder, cause that would have been the most logical outcome that wouldn't make Salem look like an idiot. And the fact that it never affected Raven or Penny despite the fact they have the maiden powers just made it look like an inconsistency. If Salem did lie about it, then the show should have actually addressed it. It shouldn't be up to us to just fix the story by just concluding that she just lied to her for no reason and then just brush it off like this, without the story itself ever addressing it. And let's be honest here, are we seriously expecting it to ever be addressed at this point? Yes, nowadays it is just accepted that the silver eyes only affect unversed, but this is just a direct contradiction with what was brought up in volume 4. If I was writing the show, I would have just cut that whole thing out and rewritten Salem's dialogue to have her simply explain that it's because of the beetle unversed that Cinder used in volume 3. Probably even add on that she didn't expect any silver-eyed warriors to still be around at this point. Obviously, I would have also have to address the fact that Salem didn't know that Summer had a child, but that's besides the point. Or I would have just kept the maiden dialogue and have the rest of the show be consistent with what Salem established to be a great weakness for maidens, despite the power that they have, which I think is a better option in general, cause like I said, Salem giving her unversed in the first place to cripple her seems like a stupid thing to do in the first place, especially since now you know there are still silver-eyed warriors out there. You can't just have a show where you keep adding in rules or lines of dialogue at random times of characters doing or establishing something and then never address it ever again when it contradicts itself. It also makes Cinder extremely stupid for not realizing that Salem clearly lied to her about it only affecting maidens and never questioning it. Why would Cinder not question the fact that Salem lied to her about it? Is she stupid? And that's obviously because the writers completely forgot about that line of dialogue and pretend as if it only affects unversed.
I'm not good at a lot of memory-related things. It's really, really bad.
Like it kept on staying as throughout the rest of the show. This is what I mean with the show being hard to keep up with what is considered canon, and if it even works within its already broken and inconsistent universe where they keep contradicting their rules anyways and never stick to it. So I hope I explained myself properly enough as to why I keep telling people that silver eyes are supposed to also affect maidens, but never do because of this contradiction. It's just funny to me how every time something comes up, I just feel the need to make these videos to explain myself, because this is just ridiculous. Anyways, like and subscribe, and I see you next time eventually.